Now, for those of you who have already had the chance to meet the director, I think you've already probably picked up on his passion, his energy, and his expertise. I've joked with other folks that our office has been sort of turbocharged in the last 6 weeks, trying to keep up with him and his pace. He comes to the City of Columbus and this department with 35 years of law enforcement experience, local, federal, and international, and he is here to make an impact. As anyone in the director's team, and they'll tell you, that's what we've seen so far. That's what you're about to see for those of you who have not had the chance. And now please join me in welcoming Safety Director Robert Clark.
Thank you. Well, good morning, everyone. Hopefully the mic is working and you can hear me. Step up here. Let me start off by saying that it is an honor for me to stand before you this morning. I recognize the responsibility of the Director of Public Safety. I recognize the responsibility of leadership. I recognize the responsibility to make sure that we are getting all the right things done. And for me, if I've had the opportunity to meet with you, you know that that means leadership. You are the leaders here in the City of Columbus. It's interesting for me to see that as you came into the room, fire is sitting on this side of the room and police are sitting on this side of the room, but Deputy Chief Knight is sitting with the firemen, so that's good. She's sitting with the Division of Fire. I am extremely proud of the work that I have seen performed in the last 6 weeks, and I've only been here for 6 weeks. It seems like 6 months, but it's only been 6 weeks. And I thought that it would be appropriate this morning to talk about a couple of things. First, we are going into the holiday season, and if I don't get an opportunity to see you personally, I wish you and your families a blessed and safe holiday season. One of the things that we forget far too often is that there are family members who sit at home waiting for the calls, waiting for our arrivals, worrying about our safety, worrying about if we are okay. And this will be a period of time for us to just pause when we can, to just spend time with them creating memories. All of us in this room understand the dynamics of time. And while we can do many things, create more time is not one of them. I'm speaking to you from experience. There are far too many occasions in my life personally where I just wish I had one more day, one more phone call. So I want you to be reflective of that as we go into this holiday season and really understand and really embrace what Thanksgiving means. In my first 4 weeks here, I was at 4 funerals. 4 funerals. And as many funerals as I've been to over the last 35 years, that was actually shocking for me personally. Because those are 4 lives lost from our ranks for a variety of reasons, but still lost. And while we take a moment to honor those that we've lost, last night I had the honor to attend the Fire Department Award dinner and celebrate the accomplishments of some very, very fine women and men in the Division of Fire, as well as a lot of citizens who helped the Division of Fire. I apologize, I was not able to make the Division of Police Award dinner as well. But from me to you, to all those that you work for, and you will hear me say that consistently today, and let me start with me, I work for you. You do not work for me. You are the experts here in the City of Columbus. We all recognize that we have new leadership here in the city, which I'll touch upon in a moment. But we work for you. And you work for your personnel. I had the opportunity to go to 11 and 12 Sub just this past week. And it was a phenomenal experience for me, and I hope that it was enriching for the officers that I had the opportunity to speak with, but it was very enriching for me because I believe that leadership is organic. Leadership is not just something that you learn in a book, in a class, at a conference. It is something you've got to do organically every day. And what does leadership look like? Leadership looks like your engagement, your compassion, your competency, your understanding. It also involves you doing the right thing when it's time to do the right thing. When I interviewed with the mayor several months ago, I shared with him that I understand my true north. After 35 years in this business, I know my true north. And for me, it is never the wrong time to do the right thing. That's a part of leadership. Successes come along with leadership, and here's what I used to say about successes in my previous career in the FBI. And you can look it all up. I'm not going to bore you with that here today, if you care to know. When I retired from the FBI in 2016, I told the women and men who gathered for my retirement going away that as I walk out of the door today, I leave all of the successes that we've had here with you because they belong to you, not to me. But I will accept the responsibility for where we failed, where we did not get it done to the extent and to the tune that we should have gotten it done. That's leadership. That is accountability. All of you present in this room and those who are joining us online or may see this recording need to understand that we are in a very different era of law enforcement, of public safety, of firefighting. We are in a very different era. I had the opportunity this week to visit with the REACT team out of the Division of Fire, a very innovative approach to dealing with addiction and most likely a whole host of other issues. Innovation, thinking outside of the box, figuring out different ways, new ways to do old things. And why do I call it old things? I call it old things because it is still service. That has never changed. When I was in Los Angeles, on the side of the Los Angeles Police Department cruisers, you see protect and serve, protect and serve. And that's something that they take very, very seriously. However, there are conversations today on should it really be serve and protect, which is a very different methodology, in my opinion, and the opinion of others. It's a very different methodology. Let me also say that the Division of Police and the Division of Fire do a lot of things exceptionally well. I've gotten the opportunity to talk to many of you, not all of you, but many of you. And we are doing the very best that we can with what we are provided. Let me give you an example. I think during my first week here, I met with Sergeant Weekly and Officer Lee, who are responsible for coordinating the EOC and the emergency response and everything that had to do with the marathon. Now, when I was in Los Angeles, I had responsibility for the Rose Bowl, the Rose Parade, the award season, any bowl games that came to Los Angeles, not to mention, big football games, USC, UCLA, and all of those things I had command and control over. So I know the work that it goes into making sure that not only the event is safe and the participants are safe, but that the spectators are safe. It's a high level of attention to detail. And that's exactly what I witnessed in Sergeant Weekly and Officer Lee. And I congratulate them for their work. We had many challenges that day in terms of personnel deployments, but I did not see panic. From Deputy Chief Botker on down, I did not see panic in the eyes of those who are responsible for making sure that that event was safe. And not just safe, but effective and efficient and all the other things that needed to happen that day. Ladies and gentlemen, that's what organic leadership looks like. Facing the challenges, overcoming the challenges. And that's what I intend to be a core principle out of the Department of Public Safety as we go forward, a core principle, and that's leadership. I want to take a moment to thank Chief Bryant and Assistant Chief Potts for their work and their partnership. So thank you for being here this morning. Thank you for your partnership. Thank you for all of the due diligence that you give the Division of Police and all of the work that I don't even recognize that you're doing behind the scenes. So thank you for your work. I want to thank Chief Happ from the Division of Fire for your leadership, sir, for you embracing me as the new Public Safety Director. I still remember the very first time that I talked to Chief Happ on the phone before I ever arrived in Columbus when I was appointed, and I talked to him on the phone and I said, Chief, I'll be honest with you. I don't know anything about fire. Here's the two things I know about fire. When it's burning, put water on it. That's all I know. But I obviously know that that is not everything that goes with serving in the Division of Fire. Obviously, that's not it. And I promised him and committed to him that I would be present. I would be at events, I would come and see training, and all the other things that are going on out there at the academy and stations. As a matter of fact, I'm going to visit Station 21 today so that I personally can go and thank the women and men who work there and honor the life of firefighter Greg Bauer, because that's important to me. So I want to thank the chief, the assistant chief, and certainly the fire chief for embracing me as a new partner and allowing me the opportunity to find a space and a place. Here's one of the things I said to the personnel in my office. I'm not here to do your job. That's what I said to the chiefs. I'm not here to do your job. You get paid to do your job, but I need your assistance in helping me to understand where is my space and place to support you doing your job. I want to take a moment to personally recognize the personnel in the Director of Public Safety office, beginning with Deputy Director George Speaks. If you just stand up. I know everyone knows you because you've been here forever, but I just want to thank him personally for his guidance and his leadership and really just coming alongside of me and helping me to learn what this position is all about. Dan Gardella is here with us as well, who is another deputy director, and again, the same philosophy. You all know Dan G. Everyone says Dan G. Dan G. Well, this is Dan G., and he has been exceptional at helping me to understand support services, parts of the budget. I'm not a numbers person. If a computer's not balancing my checkbook or my wife is not balancing my checkbook, it is not going to get balanced. So I thank you for your work and your commitment for what you do in taking care of the women and men in public safety. Thank you, Dan. Also, Deputy Director Craig Stone, if you would just stand. Again, the same process, the partnership, the leaning in, the making sure that I understand a wealth of things that they are involved in so we understand where those things plug and play throughout the Department of Public Safety. Deputy Director Stone, thank you for your service. And I have other assistant directors who are here. Echo Dennis, who I have phenomenal conversations with, who again is responsible for the numbers. And I don't know if you know, but Mr. Echo Dennis is in the Hall of Fame for soccer, and that's just an amazing thing because I don't understand soccer at all. I still don't even understand what offsides mean. But a phenomenal partner in our office. And I know you know all these individuals because they've been here, but this is my opportunity to personally recognize the work they do. Thank you, Echo. Assistant Director Bob Stewart has been a phenomenal partner. I remember when I walked into his office, and I always look at this picture. If you've ever been in Bob's office, he's got a lot of things in there. So it's sort of like a museum. But he has this one picture in there, and it was I think it was in the Columbus Dispatch, where he's got his fist balled and his head is up, and he's yelling at someone. And I asked him, I said, what was this all about? And he said, because the recruits did not park in alphabetical order. So they were getting yelled at. I don't know if that's still a thing that happens at the fire academy or the police academy where we're making the recruits park in alphabetical order. But why that was so striking to me is that I remember that as a police recruit a long time ago, where attention to detail and discipline was how we brought recruits in. So he's a steadfast component of the Department of Public Safety. And Bob, I thank you for your service. One of our newest assistant directors, Glenn McIntyre, our press information officer, and Angela Reingard, which you met when you came in, I thank them for keeping control of what is happening in the media. We all understand how the media can be an advocate or not an advocate. And it's important to have integral relationships, connections, and ultimately, and this is what's important to me, that we tell your stories accurately. That we tell your stories accurately. So every time I have the opportunity where someone wants to talk to me in the press or the media, I'm always sitting down with Glenn and making sure that we are messaging the right things. And I can assure you that my priority is to make sure we get your stories right. Because I understand what it feels like to be in a cruiser or to be an agent in a city, and leaders and the media don't get our stories right. As a matter of fact, they miss 75% or more of what we're doing out there every day. I know they do, because I've been on both sides. So we want to make sure that we are telling your stories accurately. The other thing that I want to talk about that we all have a responsibility in this room for, including myself, is recruitment. Here's what was told to me a very long time ago when I was on the Attorney General's protection detail. Attorney General John Ashcroft said to us not long after the events of the morning of 9/11, which was my second day with the Attorney General. And he said to the entire team, "The world will watch us, and we teach in everything we do." And I've said this a couple of times now at the promotion ceremony over at the Fire Academy. You teach in everything you do. You don't just come to work for 8 hours a day and then go home and then get to be someone else. Your neighbors know you're working with the Division of Police, or you're working with the Division of Fire, or wherever it is that you are working for the City of Columbus. They know that. But more importantly, our youth know that. We are having a very difficult time right now, and I know you all understand this, of engaging in partnerships and trusted relationships with our youth. Now, we have some successes, like in the TAPS program that we're running and in a variety of other programs that we're running, both in Division of Police and Division of Fire. But our youth are watching what we do. I had a conversation yesterday at the mayor's interfaith breakfast or lunch, I guess, where we were talking with faith leaders, and they were talking about diversification within the Division of Police and the Division of Fire. And after they made their comments and they kicked it over to me for a response, here's what I shared. Here's my philosophy on diversification. This is just Robert 101. Diversification first starts with creating the opportunity to diversify. We can't expect our youth, particularly our youth of color, to understand the process to becoming a firefighter or becoming a police officer. We've got to meet them where they are and create the opportunity for those conversations. Now, we have personnel both in fire and police who are doing a phenomenal job at engagement. But we have to continue to create that opportunity. It's not just about the input. And I had this conversation with the fire recruiters. It's not just about how many numbers we are getting in. What is important to me is how many numbers are going through. Because if we start with 25% diversity and we only end up with 2% diversity standing on this stage, then have we really diversified? So diversification has got to be about creating the opportunity, understanding the standards, engaging our youth and young adults into that process so that they understand what the throughput process is. I like that we now can apply via text message, because I always say if you want to get on social media, ask a 14-year-old and they'll get you up on Snapchat and Twitter in seconds. So they understand that world. So I'm happy to see that that part has changed. Here's the second thing. We have got to model what we want to see, what they expect from us. We have got to model that in leadership, in service, wherever we serve. I already said that. But that's one of the things to diversification, because it's not a situation where do as I say and don't do as I do, because our children and our young adults are modeling the behavior that they see. Most of us in this room did not grow up with the internet. Probably thank God, I guess. But we didn't grow up with the internet. But our youth today have immediate access to information and immediate access to influence. There's now a category of a job, I guess, if you want to call it a job, of social media influencers. I don't pretend to understand the media or social media, but these are influencers, individuals who put things on the internet to influence other people and influence behavior. So it's the immediacy of information. So things that we do, things that we say, even this morning, standing here before you, is modeling exactly what the expectations are. Professionalism, organic leadership, engagement. So that's number 2. Model the behavior that you want to see in our new recruits. Here's the third thing. Change the dialogue. Change the dialogue that we're having in our families personally, in our communities, with our friends, and encourage others to change the dialogue. And what do I mean by that? When I joined law enforcement back in 1987 and got on the Youngstown Police Department, I was called so many different things, a sellout, an Uncle Tom, a whole bunch of things that I'm sure a lot of the women and men in our Division of Fire and Police have heard for a variety of reasons. We have got to change the dialogue. The reason that I got into law enforcement was very unique. And I don't wish that inception into law enforcement or that interest in law enforcement on anyone. And it was simply because at 13 years old, my father was shot and killed. So I am the son of a murdered father, which was never solved. No justice, no closure. Ultimately, and over a course of time, very, very slow healing. But it was only when I got in a position to influence, as I said, influencers, the course of homicide investigations in Los Angeles through the creation of Operation Save Our Streets, where from 2010 to 2016, we solved over 650 cold cases in partnership with the FBI and the Los Angeles Police Department. And every time I had the opportunity to go to those families and tell them that their loved one's case was solved, was reassuring for me, was healing for me. Influence. So we've got to change the dialogue. But that's a part of leadership. Actively engaging, being out there in front, being organic, being transparent, being involved. All of us at some point in our careers raised our right hand and swore to uphold and committed to uphold. The thing that is absolutely critical, and what I said to a new recruit that I just swore in, I think it was last week, the weeks are blurring together now. And he asked me if I had any advice, and this is what I told him: remember your oath. That's the best advice I could give any new recruit coming in, any officer or firefighter that's struggling at some point in their career. Remember your oath. Because far too often, the shine of that day, when you stood on this stage, or I stood on another stage, or I stood in Quantico with the FBI director, that shine fades. And we get focused on other things: family, promotions, career, accomplishments, kids that don't listen, bills we can't pay, cars that don't work, washing machines that break down, refrigerators that clank. We get focused on all different kinds of things. And we forget why we raised our right hand so many years ago. For me, I had the opportunity to do it twice, as I shared with you, the Youngstown Police Department and the FBI. And I thought that was it for me until I went to Trinidad and Tobago and had the opportunity to be sworn in yet again as a senior superintendent down there in charge of homicides and gangs, which I thought that was a phenomenal step in my career, to be in the Caribbean doing the work that I love to do. And yes, it was in the Caribbean. But a country that had over 500 homicides and all the issues we deal with here in the United States, probably more in terms of corruption and open borders, 6 nautical miles from Venezuela. But the oath is important. The words are important. The words mean something. And those are the 3 things that I feel about diversification. It's creating opportunity, modeling what we want to see, and changing the dialogue. Here's also what I would like to talk to you about this morning. And that's about your direct responsibility where you are, where you work, where you go every day, the women and men that you work for. Ask yourself, am I engaged? Am I involved? Do I understand what's going on? As many of you have already witnessed from me personally, you will see me engaged. I can't tell you how many times I've heard in the last 6 weeks, I've never seen the director here. I've never seen the director do this. I'm not here to disparage why that is. To be honest with you, I really don't care why that is. Because for me, life is not about looking in the rearview mirror. It's about looking into the windshield and making sure we are moving forward. Now, am I always going to get things right? No. I'll be the first to tell you that I'm not. But I assure you that my mistakes will be of the mind and not of the heart. Simply because I don't know or don't know better. And as a matter of fact, Glenn just corrected me on something just the other day, simply because I just did not know. Because again, I want to be telling your stories accurately. And this is where I depend on your partnership and your leadership within the Division of Fire, within the Division of Police. And we're all learning this every single day. We were just talking yesterday about what does it mean to be new, still new. You probably still consider me new. I'm sure you do. I don't consider me new, simply because I did not have time to be new. I'm not exactly sure where the honeymoon period was. You know, when you're new, you come into an organization, you have this thing they call a honeymoon period. I'm not exactly sure where that was. Maybe I'll get Chief Happ or Chief Bryan or Assistant Chief Potts to tell me where that was, since they're relatively new. Like, where was that honeymoon period? Because I think I missed that. George, I think I missed that. You didn't tell me where that was. But the point is that I had to hit the ground running. And how do I hit the ground running when I don't know anything? There were people talking to me like, hey, jump on this call. We're going to talk to the Crime Alliance from the Short North. I'm like, oh, yeah, that's great. Where is the Short North? I didn't even know where it was. I didn't realize it was literally right out my door. Didn't realize that. I'm going to funerals for fallen firefighters and fallen police officers, and I don't know where these stations are. I don't know where these women and men served every day. And I am so excited to go to 21 today. And the story that keeps running through my mind, and Chief, you'll remember this. Women and men of the fire service, you'll remember this. When we were at Firefighter Bauer's memorial, I forget the gentleman's name now. One of his best friends that served with him got up there and told stories. As we typically do at events like that, we tell stories. We're storytellers. And someone was telling a story about how they used to actually aggravate Firefighter Bauer because they would put toast crumbs in the silverware drawer and close it. And when he would open the drawer and see the crumbs in there, it would like cause him to just go nuts because he was so meticulous. See, ladies and gentlemen, that's the kind of organization I want to belong to. That is meticulous. Attention to detail. For the Division of Police, if you go down this hallway right past the cafeteria to the end of the hallway before you can turn left and go down the corridor, what does that first sign say? Can anyone tell me what that first sign says? Not a test. But can you tell me what it says? Attention to detail. Attention to detail. Thank you, sir. That's exactly what it says. And why is that there? Because we want our recruits to know that attention to detail is important. But is that the only reason? I think not. So that we, as leaders, are reminded that attention to detail is important. And that is organic leadership. So the Division of Fire doesn't get away with one. You're not going to get away either. Out at the Fire Academy, out back by the, I don't even know what it would be called, back where the gym is, where the extra vehicles are parked. I'm sure you have a name for that building. There's a statue there. And what is the inscription on that statue? Can anyone tell me? Can anyone tell us? I'm sure at some point in your careers, I don't know when the statue was erected, but it's important what it says. Yes, sir.
It says, let no man say his training failed.
That's very close. I'm going to give you credit for that because that is almost exactly what it says. But here's what it says specifically. Let not my ghost return to say that my training failed me. And that is important. And if any of you, I know Fire Chief Happ will be there with me on Saturday, I will be asking the Get Fire Ready people, there's an inscription out here on these grounds that you must go and find. That will be the one. Because again, that was striking to me because of the responsibility that we have to train our recruits, to train each other. I had the opportunity to come out last week, I believe it was, and meet with Commander Lang and meet with Deputy Chief Bash and walk through the academy. Training is important to me. Because those of us that have been involved in critical incidents and those that investigate critical incidents, we recognize in critical incident research that every time we are involved in a critical incident, our accuracy goes down by 50%. We know that nationally through all the research. But if our training fails us, then those statistics and that accuracy and all the other things come down. And we are in an era of law enforcing and providing public service and providing fire service where we cannot afford to be ill-trained. Training is important to me. Let me tell you how much so it's important to me. When I was out at the Fire Academy a couple of weeks ago, and I walked into a conference room similar to this, and I understand that the Fire Academy used to be an old high school. As a matter of fact, I had an opportunity to walk around the old high school with Assistant Chief Moore. And he used to tell me how things were and et cetera, et cetera. And Chief, I think the original seats are still in the auditorium. Are there still the original seats? Yeah. Like I was sitting in those seats just the other day, and I swear that reminded me of my time with Sister Margaret Mary. I swear it did. They're hard, old, brown, rickety sort of things. So I immediately got on the phone with Dan G, and I said, hey, can we do something about this to change this? Not just for the comfort of training, but for the image we portray to those we train. And that we understand the impact that we have on the personnel that we put in those seats, that they matter. Not their comfort, but their professionalism. This was also very evident to me when I went to one of the subs. And I said very publicly and very clearly, this is inadequate, it is antiquated. And I've heard the very similar about the firehouses. We as leaders, I as a leader owe you better. We owe you better. So we're going to gather as a team and figure out how we can do better with now the new construction of the Hilltop substation. And as I have said on many occasions, even to the chiefs, I am not building a brand new 1950s building. I refuse. So we will work together to figure out what does the new Hilltop station need and how should it be designed and where will the community engage and where will our investigative personnel engage. So that if that is the only one in our tenure here that we get to build for whatever reason, it will not be what we've already had. It will set the precedent for how we move forward. Here's the other thing I want to tell you about honor and commitment and understanding that we matter, that you matter. Let me come back to the police academy. When I was out here last week and taking a tour and saw a variety of things, women and men scurrying everywhere, working, doing what they're supposed to do, role players and scenarios and all of the things that you would expect to see here at the academy. But I walked out into the courtyard of honor that's right outside this door, where we honor the women and men who have fallen in sacrifice for service of this city, our residents in this department. And Commander Lang and Deputy Chief Bash stood out there for probably, I'd say at least a half hour, while I walked around the courtyard and read every inscription. Because honoring our fallen is important to me. And when I saw the condition and witnessed the condition of that courtyard, sidewalks are not clean, walls are not cleaned, grass is not kept the way it should be, I said to myself, that will not be on my watch. Because those women and men that are enshrined out there deserve better. They deserve for a clean, pristine place of honor. Not just for their families, not just for us who served with them, but for all of our recruits that are running down the tile floors and walking on the carpet floors that pass by that courtyard of honor probably 25 times a day. That is literally the place where we demonstrate to them that they matter. And when we do in-services, and people come here to train with us, and they see our hall of honor, our courtyard of honor, and they see that it is pristine and well taken care of, we will demonstrate that their sacrifices were not in vain. That is our responsibility as leaders. So I immediately got on the phone on Friday, made a couple calls, and not issuing any orders. It was not about issuing orders. It was about appealing to the heart and the decency of someone who's in charge of those resources to make sure that it gets addressed. And Saturday morning, as I understand, there was a crew out here cleaning the sidewalks. And as soon as I got here this morning, I walked out there to check. Now, we've run into a couple challenges with making sure that it gets done the way it should get done. But the point is that we in leadership have got to do the right thing. We've got to be sending the right kinds of messages. I can't do that alone. I need your help to do that. I need your help to do that. Not just once a week, not just once a month, not just an executive meeting, but every day, all day, as the opportunities present themselves. And that's the organic nature of leadership. You're probably sitting there wondering, after the 30 minutes or so that I've been speaking, well, Director, we've heard all of that, so what's your plan? I'm sure someone is asking, you're asking me that question, what's your plan? Here's what my plan is in the 6 weeks that I've been here. First and foremost, to understand the personnel that are available to partner with and determine the priority of things that we need to get done, which the Chief of Police, the Assistant Chief of Police, the Fire Chief are already in the process of doing. But here is where I know we need to be going. We need to increase our personnel on both sides of the house. I already talked about recruitment. We need to improve the way that we communicate, the way that our CAD system works, the way that we keep records, the way that we access our records. That is important as well. Making sure that our women and men have sufficient vehicles to work in, sufficient engines and medics and ladders to work on. See, Chief, how I know those terms already? I know those are 3 different things. To make sure that they have sufficient resources to do the job that we ask them to do. Now, some of the things are going to be longer-term things, but it will not stop us from doing the things that I've already described. Engaging in organic leadership, engaging in front-loaded leading. We can do that today, and that's free. Here's what I say about money. I'm sure you're all aware that the budget will be submitted soon. What does the budget say? What will be in it? The presence of money does not guarantee success. The absence of money does not guarantee failure. Let me say that again. The presence of money does not guarantee success, and the absence of money does not guarantee failure. Therefore, it is up to us to strategize. And for several of you that are present in here, I've already asked you for strategies about a variety of things, so that I have the opportunity to sit down with the chief, sit down with the fire chief, the police chief, the assistant chief, her executive staff, his executive staff, and determine how we are going to prioritize and enhance the things that we are already doing. One of those that I can assure you that will be the top of the list is the REACT team. I had the opportunity to meet with them, Captain Parrish and his entire team this week, and just not only understand the work that they're doing in the addiction and opiate addiction space, but a variety of other things that they're doing. But here's where it's important, statistically successful and impactful, is that they are reducing the number of runs that the police and the fire have to make just because of their intervention. And I want to say that the reduction numbers are into the thousands, if I'm not mistaken. That is significant. That is a priority. Not to mention all of the other things that are coming online with the GVI program that we're going to introduce, the reserves that we're going to bring back, the laterals program that we're going to build, all of the officers that we're going to try and hire next year. There's a variety of things that we're talking about. So when I share with you what is my vision, it really is not my anything. It is our vision collectively. And that's why I have taken the time to meet with a lot of you, will continue to still meet with a lot of you that I have not had the opportunity to speak with, because we need to understand organically, and you keep hearing me say that, what the priorities are and where we need to be focusing our efforts and our energies and ultimately our resources. So that's part of my vision. The other part of my vision is establishing a higher standard of accountability and transparency. You have heard Chief Bryant say this several times. When our officers do the right thing, we will be there to support them 100%. And when they don't, we will still be there 100%. And everything that we're dealing with, even before I got here, on both sides of the house, those things will ultimately find their level. And they will follow a process. Whatever that process will be, legally or administratively, they will find their level. But there will be total transparency, total accountability, and we will figure out a new way and a new day forward. Because that's what we have to do. Because we have nearly 1 million residents who are depending on us to do that. So we can't get so caught up in the internal things. We want to do the right things right. And as you have already heard me say, it's never the wrong time to do the right thing. And that's exactly what we will do. We have to return to an era of providing public service that is equitable, transparent, collaborative, engaging, trusted, and all of the other things that you could attach to that. I know that we've come through an era here in the city of Columbus that is not unlike any of the eras that have been before us with social unrest. As I shared with you, I had the opportunity to work in a myriad of cities, Los Angeles for 12 years, Chicago for 6 years, Washington, D.C. So I've been in major cities that have learned some very valuable lessons. Los Angeles was under a consent decree. The DOJ has been invited here. They are conducting their review because we want to be transparent and we want to engage with their findings and their recommendations on how we do business better. As I said almost an hour ago now, we have phenomenal women and men, both in the Division of Police and the Division of Fire, that are getting it done every single day. Most of them with very few accolades, most of them. So I think that we are performing at a much higher level than a lot of places across the country, but I also believe that we can do better. We can do better, and we will push ourselves to do so, simply because we must. No matter where it is that you work in the city, Division of Police, Division of Fire, I challenge you to find more effective and efficient ways to do what you do. And maybe you're already performing at a very high level, so help someone else. What I've said to cadets, and I've said to recruits, and I've said to get fire ready people, we leave no one behind, because this is not about us individually. This is not about the director, not about the chiefs. This is not about us individually. This is about us collectively. And when we win, we all win. And when it's time to be accountable, we will be accountable. My vision also includes figuring out a way that we can enhance and increase our ability to be data-driven in what we do, from the inception of calls, our communications, our backup communications, our technology, how we are capturing that information, and can we incorporate that into our data-driven efforts. So that's another priority. And I've had several conversations around that. We have a lot of new things coming in terms of technology that we're working on, we're finalizing to allow and help our women and men do the job that they already do exceptionally, to do it just that much better. The Division of Fire just got a Home One unit, which is just a phenomenal unit that's going to be deployed out in our communities and provide a variety of health services. You know, we have a stroke unit that's out there just doing phenomenal work and literally saving lives. So we're going to find ways to be more innovatively engaged with our communities to address the things that we have to address. Here's the last thing that I would share with you before I open it up for questions. What can I do for you? What can the Director of Public Safety and our office do for you? I've stood up here now for a little bit, and I've said all the things I expect of you. But I'll encourage you to ask me, or share with me, and share with our staff, what can we do for you? What do you need? What clarity do you need? What priority do you need? What emphasis do you need from our office? And maybe you've already had these conversations with our deputy directors, our assistant directors, and that's great. But this is your opportunity to share with me personally, what do you need? What can I do for you? And I realize that we're in a crowded room with all command staff and all of that, and sometimes it can be uncomfortable to ask a question or make a comment or offer a suggestion. Angela's over there. I know she's going to write things down. But it's important that we understand the new opportunity that is before us, simply because we have new leadership in the city. And you have leaders who are actively engaged. In just the 6 weeks I've been here, I think I have been to probably close to 24 meetings with the chief, the assistant chief, and a variety of deputy chiefs and commanders who are present in this room. So I know they're out there. I know they're engaged. I've been to many things with Chief Happ already, events we had at the Fire Academy, and so on and so forth. So this is your opportunity to share with me and the staff that I work for, what can we do for you? Any questions? Anything you'd like to share? No one? Okay, sir. I'm sorry, I can't see you beyond that light. I did see your hand go up, though. Yeah.
You mind stepping up the mic?
Thank you for being the first one to ask something.
I trained you, don't look for much at this question.
First of all, thank you for saying what you said about the memorial out in the courtyard. It really hit right here, and I appreciate it. Sir, I joined the recruiting unit about almost 3 years ago.
I'm sorry, sir. Tell me your name.
Officer Samuel James, I'm sorry.
Okay. Okay, Mr. James, thank you. I'm sorry.
And within that time, I was offered the honor, given the honor of becoming the community liaison officer to the Hispanic Latino community in Columbus. So you can imagine with the shortage of staff that we have, it's virtually impossible to do a good job at that. But in the time that I've been in that position, I've been able to see the need that there is. Oftentimes, Hispanics are targeted because they don't speak the language. They don't report because of past experiences with the police where they came from, or maybe they have the misconception that if they are a victim to a crime and they report it, but they're illegal or undocumented, that we are going to turn them over to ICE or something like that. It became such a big thing to me because I'm from Dominican Republic and my parents all migrated here and so did I, that I actually made that my capstone for my master's project. I was like, I need to see what's out there and how we can address it, and if there is a formula that is being used somewhere else that maybe we can bring here. So to that end, I started my research and I'm still working on it. My main question is, because the suggestion that I'm trying to make through my capstone is the creation of a community liaison office to the Hispanic community, which is the third largest ethnic group in Columbus. Would you be interested and open to hearing said proposal once I complete it? Because I really believe that they need it. They've been asking for it for a while now. And although I'm here to do the job, we just have so many things going on that.
Sure. So let me just share, and I didn't get into a lot of my stuff personally, but when I was in Los Angeles, I created what was known as the Community Impact Program. So the FBI does not have a community program outside of going to schools and talking to kids, right? So I created this program because I recognized that the work that we were doing, literally doing in the community to arrest all the gang members that we were, and there were times we arrested 80, 100, 120 gang members, and then we just leave. So we're very good at tearing doors off and taking people to jail, but not real good at coming back and doing the health, healing, and restoration stuff that we know is necessary in order to keep crime down, because we saw crime spiking once we took literally all the OGs out of the neighborhood, so I won't bore you with all that. But I recognize that there's a need for us to do something different. So the chief and the assistant chief and I have been constantly talking about how we're going to enhance the community liaison program. They're obviously in a process of studying and getting information from the area commanders and deputy chiefs to really understand what is endemically the issues in particular communities, particularly communities of color and cultural diversity. So they're in the process of doing that. And I'm very excited about the strategy I know they're going to put forward, and we'll have many more conversations about that. But we're just in the process of doing that. I'm sure that that is a part of the analysis that's going on. I don't want to speak for the chief or the assistant chief because they're here, but those things are under review. You have an advantage now. All of the officers and firefighters here in the city have an advantage because you now have leadership that have not just learned about or read about community policing and community-oriented servicing, but we've actually done it. We've actually had success in those programs. We understand how they reduce crime. So that is a very high priority of ours. It's just a matter of acquiring the analysis, because we're not from here, obviously, and understanding where the priorities are, and then also coupled with the fact that we have to then assess the personnel and the resources that we have available for these things. So it's easy to build a house. If you build a brand new house and don't have the money to put furniture in it, do you really have a new house? Right. You really don't. So we really are looking at all of those factors, what we need to do differently, what we need to build brand new, but then also how we need to staff those things. There's been information put forward through the Matrix report, which happened pre-pandemic, that the department was, I think, 300 officers down, if not more. Clearly, we've had a lot of retirements and otherwise, so we understand that we are down. I have been to roll calls, right? I've seen the deployment sheets that have been shared with me by Deputy Chief Knight, actually. So I've seen shifts and watches where there are 4 officers, 6 officers. I don't know how you police with 6 officers, but again, that's another conversation. So we are obviously in a shortage of personnel space, but those things are in research, they are in analysis, they are in consideration, they will be part of the overall new strategy that we're trying to develop for the Division of Police. I just beg your patience and the patience of the women and men who serve with you, and just allow the chiefs and their executive staff to gather the information, conduct the analysis, and then set the new priorities as we move forward. But thank you for coming forward and sharing that. I applaud you for walking down those stairs and asking a question, because
Well, glad to hear what you said. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate you. Anyone else? This is your chance. And yes, I know we're being recorded and everyone's kind of, yes, sir. Thank you.
Hello, sir. My name is Dennis Jeffrey. We've met a few times.
Yes, we have, sir.
Directly. First of all, I want to say thank you for doing this. I think explaining your vision is really important, because I think we don't know where to start until we see that vision.
Sure.
So thank you for doing that. Also, thank you for bringing up programs like REACT, because I think that's kind of the future. You know, the co-responder model is really important. And I think you've alluded to leadership, and I think our most important resource is our people. Mm-hmm. And I know I've been involved in our early reporting system, where we look at officers for certain things to see, can we intervene with that officer before they go down a path that, you know, is going to be very unfortunate for them and organization. And I think our system currently is very antiquated and inefficient, so I just wanted to know what your thoughts are on how we create a better intervention process for our officers and firefighters.
Commander, thank you for that, and that's a very important component. I didn't touch on that, so thank you for that question. Deputy Director Speaks and myself and several others have been talking about officer wellness practically since I got here. There are some things that are already in motion, the Officer Wellness Center, but we're also trying to understand how we build a system and a process that's much better than what we do today. But let me actually take you back a little bit further than just those types of issues. When you have 4 or 5 officers that are the only officers deployed on a watch, and I know you know all this, so just bear with me, and they're the only 4 or 5 officers, and now you have to force officers to stay or call officers in on their day off, or they don't have days off. We all think we're supermen and superwomen until we're not, right? The stress, just, you know, everything that goes along with doing this job. So we have seen nationally, and the research shows this, that as you have officers who work more and more and more, those incidents go up and the wellness comes down. I mean, it simply cannot be any other way. Especially as the officers I met, I believe, at 12 Sub, who started at 11 p.m. I think they started at 11 p.m. So they'll be there till 7 a.m. That was the worst shift for me as a police officer. I hated it, and I even told Deputy Chief Botker that, you know, so thank the women and men who work that shift. They don't call it graveyard for nothing, right? So what I'm saying to you is we've got to do better on our deployment process, and which then goes back to our recruitment, which then goes back to our training and getting more individuals who can be in position to fill these slots so that we can give our officers some respite, right? But in the meantime, and during that time, we have to then create a process that is really surrounding wraparound services analysis of our officers and their wellness, their mental wellness, their physical wellness, their domestic wellness, because there's no such thing as having an issue at home and not bringing it to work. Any of us that have ever been in a squad understand that that's all you hear all day is, girlfriend and wives and husbands and all those sorts of things. So we have to create a process where we're taking better care of ourselves and each other. And in leadership, we recognize that. 2021 and even just a few years back has shown us that officer wellness is very critical, because there's no more, like when you and I began, certainly when I began in the late 80s, it's like you just dealt with it, babies cut in half and everything else we had to deal with. You just dealt with it and moved on to the next call. We recognize a very different era now where mental health does not have the stigma that it once had, and referring officers or firefighters to mental health counseling. That's why it's incorporated many times in collective bargaining agreements and the disciplinary process, and making sure our officers are engaging, because as I said earlier, our organizations are just made up of the same human beings that we police. Bills we can't pay, cars that don't work, kids that don't listen, kids that only call you for money, all the same things that they're dealing with, we're dealing with. So we have to create a process, and this is where leadership has to be so organic, that we are recognizing when our personnel are struggling and what are the red flags, what are the danger signs. We can't be afraid to just pull a guy to the side and say, hey man, or hey, lady, you just need some help. And I want to be here to help you, and peer support is absolutely critical. I'm actually involved right now in my 6 weeks here, involved in peer support with Sergeant Lissath. Because that's important to me, right? So that is absolutely critical that we do that for each other. Regardless if we know each other or not, we are all here together. We are all facing the same things. So that's something we're in the process of building. I'm excited to see this wellness center open. I haven't been there yet, but I'll be there soon, to really understand from my desk in my office how we can better support and make sure that that is substantively engaged in, because officer wellness is critical today, particularly as we move forward.
Thank you, sir, very
You're
much.
welcome. Welcome. Thank you, Commander. Anyone else? Anyone from fire? Chief, you tell them they couldn't stand up and ask a question. Yes, sir.
Morning, sir. My name is Elisha Holmes. I'm part of the cadet program with the Columbus Fire Department. Wanted to know what your thoughts are on the longevity of the program. Is it something that you think that you'd intend to stand behind for a long duration, or is it still kind of in testing phases? What are your thoughts on that?
I don't consider it in testing phase, Chief. I didn't know, is it in testing phase? Okay, so it's a running program. So no, it is not in testing phase. See, here's where organic leadership is very valuable. I've already had the opportunity to engage not only with the fire cadets, but with the police cadets. I had the opportunity to talk to a new class that's coming in. I thought I saw Sergeant Ally. Oh, there you are, okay. That Sergeant Ally is involved in. Again, I was there because it matters to me. It matters to me how we are introducing our young people to these professions. This is the only real job I've ever had. So for me, it's the best thing ever to do, right? But how are we bringing them in? How are we starting them off? How are we engaging them? All of our cadets, as you know, come from different walks of life and different experiences, but we have a responsibility to give them a very transparent, accountable, disciplined process to coming into this profession. And from what I've seen thus far, the cadet program is doing an absolute phenomenal job of that. I've seen police cadet recruits or police cadets here in the building, and they stand at attention when someone walks in the hall, and all the other disciplinary things that they do. In my opinion, again, just Robert 101, that is something that is missing from this generation of kids, is just discipline and understanding what it means to be respectful and disciplined and on time and accountable for something. So since our cadet program, I know on both sides of the house will bring those elements, That is fascinating to me. I'm excited about it. I'm enthused about it. When I go to the Get Fire Ready program on a couple Saturdays ago, I'm going tomorrow morning and see, everyone will be in the stands. And if you were there the last time, you know how passionate I am about that, and just the opportunity to begin to mold these young women and men in not just a fashion of just policing or firefighting. It's so much more than that. It's about discipline. It's about teamwork. It's about being a part of something bigger than yourself. So as long as I'm in this chair, it will be something that will be sustained. It will be a very high priority of ours, because that's the way that we really start to mold and train and expose this next generation of public service guardians, if you will, for the generations to come. As I've shared with Chief Happ, and I'll share with you now, at some point, he and I and many others in this room, we're going to be sitting at Dunkin' Donuts with Velcro shoes on, talking about when we used to work here, right? That's where we're going to be, right? When I walked through the fire academy just a couple weeks ago, and I see all the pictures in black and white, eventually we are going to be in those pictures. They just may not be black and white. But you see what I'm saying? There's a time that we're going to be gone. But we have an opportunity now to build the bridges for those who will come at a time we will not be there to see them cross. That is our responsibility in leadership today. So that's what I mean about the organic nature of what we do, to recognize these opportunities and these responsibilities that are before us for a time when we won't be here anymore. And we all in this profession, you and everyone in this room, you go from being Director Clark, you go to being that guy. Remember that guy? When he stood up on the stage, what was his name? So we are all moving that direction. But right now, we have a responsibility and an opportunity, again, to build those bridges for those who will cross that we will not see. All right?
Thank you, sir.
I appreciate you, and thank you for your work. Anyone else? Anyone? Any questions, concerns, comments? Yes, sir.
Sir, Ken Keeper, Deputy Chief from Police. I just want to encourage you. We talked about this when we met earlier this week. We talk a lot about police and fire. We talk a lot about our facilities, our folks, our people. We're kind of the shiny ball. We bring all the lights, we bring all the uniforms. The public sees us, knows us. They thank us. They criticize us. We're the public face of public safety. I want to encourage that you remain focused on the folks who don't get any of the attention, and that's the folks in 911. I've often said, nobody ever calls the police, right? They call 911. And so I remain concerned about the state of the facilities there, the equipment they work with, the people, their lack of resources. We talk about 4 to 6 officers working a shift. They are grossly understaffed there, working in a very small facility. There's a lot of plans to move forward to build a new place, but their administrator here, Mr. Coots, is here. I just want to make sure that we don't lose sight of the importance of 911 and the work that those folks do.
Yep. Deputy Chief, that's an excellent point. Thank you for reminding me of that. It's not something that I've forgotten, but let me share a story with you. I had the opportunity just a couple weeks ago, I guess it was, to interview who will be the new manager of the 911 center. She had already been interviewed by the panel, but I wanted to talk to them. I wanted to talk to the candidates myself. So I had the opportunity to talk to her. And the candidates that I spoke with, this is what I shared with them. For me, the 911 call taker is the first level of everything we do. Like nothing else happens until that call comes in, right? I'm not talking about the officers who proactively respond to stuff. I'm talking about that phone ringing and someone picking up the phone and engaging our public. And they're not calling to see how you are. They're not calling to see if you want something to eat. They call because they're in crisis. So we have to have a certain perspective, training, leadership that allows us to be the solution to the beginning of the solution to the problems that we call for. So I recognize that we're struggling to hire people. We're struggling to get to where we need to be in the 911 call center. We probably talk about it in my office at least 2 or 3 times a week because I am constantly asking the questions about personnel, leadership, facilities, infrastructure, technology. You and I talked about, if the main facility goes down, like we're all sitting in a broom closet for the backup facility. So those things are critical. And as I shared with you, just my experience over my career and being involved in critical incidences or being command over critical incidents, those things are absolutely critical to me, as I shared with you about Sergeant Weekly and Officer Lee. One of the things that, again, while I'm here, we've got to get away from as leaders, as organizations, is just making do. Making do is only good until you can't make do, right? So I recognize that our women and men have done a phenomenal job with sometimes the bare bones or bare essentials that we've given them to get the jobs done, and they've done a phenomenal job with that. That's the professionalism in them, right? But as leaders, we owe them better. We owe them better perspective. We owe them better vision. We owe them better planning. We owe them better prioritization. And again, along with the chiefs and myself, the mayor's office, we are having those very detailed conversations about how we need to continue to be focused on those kinds of things, because I've already learned the lesson that there's no such thing as it's not going to happen here. I mean, I shared with you when we met, and I'll share with all of you now. My second day on the Attorney General's protection detail was 9/11. Who would have thought that a plane would have flown into the Pentagon in the trade towers and crashed in Shanksville, Pennsylvania? I would have never thought that happened. And in Washington, D.C., we couldn't communicate. Our cell phones went down. We weren't on the same radios. We couldn't communicate with the Pentagon and Capitol, Metro. We couldn't communicate with anyone. And that's a scary place to be, right? So I recognize that, and that experience has carried me through my entire career, that I know we have to be very forward-leaning when it comes to those sorts of things. I'm in the process of having meetings with Homeland Security representatives and other individuals who are responsible for our emergency response apparatus, our 911, all of those things, right? They are responsible for a variety of things, as we are. Because we're going to try and figure out how can we do what we do better. How can we do what we do with better equipment, better technology, better responsiveness? And again, let me be clear when I say this, to the Division of Police, to the chief, the assistant chief, and the women and men who work in the Division of Police, as well as Division of Fire and Chief Happ. Our women and men are doing a phenomenal job, but we can give them better. We need to give them better so that they are much more effective and efficient at doing the very phenomenal job that they do. That's what we owe them. And just it barely enough or not enough is just not acceptable for me. And that's the same conversation that you and I had. I thank you for sharing that. Well, that will continue to be an emphasis. You see Dan G sitting right there, don't you? Okay, so we have conversations about this constantly in making sure that this remains a priority in our office.
Hey, if you don't mind, just real quick, I think it was Commander Meter that first made me aware of the phrase, the first responders. And I love that phrase we talk about, just what you said about the call takers. Mm-hmm. They are America's first responders.
That's correct.
And that really kind of helps bring them into the fold. There's nothing so we have a great relationship with our partners at Fire, but we can do most of our work without our friends at Fire. And Fire can do most of their work without our help, but none of us can do any of it without 911. So
Understood.
Those folks are primo.
Absolutely, and thank you for sharing that. And that's why it's a priority in our office. We recognize we have some challenges there. We're in the process of trying to overcome some hiring challenges, which we're involved in as we speak. But as you know, change and progress, it takes time. And that's why I shared earlier. We just need your patience, we need your participation. But here's what I would also encourage you to give us as well, and that's accountability. If you are not seeing the things that you need out there to do your jobs, make sure that that is pushing up through the chain of command and making sure that we are hearing that and have good perspective on that. That's one of the things that I'm very happy about. The directors in our office are very engaged. We're going to be even more engaged. So when your phones are ringing and your doors are knocking, understand that we are there to partner with you to figure out how we can do a much better job at the things that we do and how we can help you do your job much better as well. And certainly much more transparently, much more accountable, much more equitably, because that's the direction that we're going. That is the direction that we're going. Anything else? We have a few more minutes. Anything else? I was expecting a lot more questions. I couldn't have answered everything. Anything? Nothing? All right. So let me just say this then. thank you for your service. And so many times we hear this, that it just kind of passes by us, it passes through us. But I am heartfelt telling you, thank you for your service. I and we cannot do this job alone. This job needs every single one of you and probably 10 more sitting next to you, and we recognize that. But for myself, the director's office, the staff that works there, the staff I get the opportunity and the honor to work for, we thank you. We thank you for the sacrifices. We thank you for the sacrifices of your family, for the frustration, all of the other things that you face on a day-to-day basis. And let me just end with this. Leadership is organic. It is organic. And that can be difficult for us to do sometimes. We train ourselves to do a certain job without a lot of emotion. But it's the emotion that brought us here. It's the willingness to want to be a part of the difference we wanted to see in our communities that brought us here. It's the experiences that we've had that continue to motivate us every day. If I were to ask all of you a question, especially for the uniform personnel, do you remember the time when you came to work and you got off shift and it was your day off? You did not want to be off. You're calling the stations, you're calling the subs, you're calling your buddies on calls. Hey, what's going on? What's going on? What did I miss? What did I miss? What did I miss? That's enthusiasm. That was the passion that all of us had and have for what it is that we do. I encourage you to demonstrate that to the personnel that you work for, because they need to see that from you. They need to see that passion. They need to see that motivation to make sure that our badges and our bugles are shining every single day, because you teach in everything you do. Before we conclude this evening, I want to introduce you to the real boss of the Director of Public Safety. I may have been introduced as the boss of public safety, but I'm really not. If I could get Miss Regina Edwards to stand up. I saved Regina for last for this reason. When I first met Regina and I shared with her, I said, Miss Regina, the most important thing to me is my schedule, because I need to know where I need to be every day, all day long. And she has done a phenomenal job. I know probably 75% of you in here have talked to her, emailed with her, trying to get time for us to get together. And I just want to publicly acknowledge Regina for the work that she does, the patience she has, the many things I'm sending her, and then she's got to turn 17 schedules upside down. Is Assistant Chief Blair here? Yeah, I think he and I were supposed to meet like a month ago, and things have just been turned upside down probably 1,000 times. And Regina's responsible for all that. So Regina, thank you very much for the work that you do. Your patience, you are a saint already in 6 weeks. I'll nominate you for sainthood. I have an in with the Pope. Actually, the Pope blessed the crucifix I wear every day. So I have an in with the Pope. So I'm going to make sure that he makes you a saint, because you put up with me every day. But in all seriousness, she's been phenomenal. Please, if you want to meet with me, make sure we're following the chain of command, because there is a chain of command within the police, within the fire service, to make sure that everyone is aware. But you'll see me. I'm out. I want to be engaged. I want to be out there and just being with you, not to micromanage, not to step on your toes, but to just be organically a part of what it is that you're doing, so that I understand the challenges and that I can also be there to celebrate the successes. Probably the highest honor for me in these last 6 weeks, other than attending the memorial services, was the awards last night. And there were a lot of them, and we were there for a while. And Chief Happ and I stood up on stage, and we congratulated every firefighter and medic and everyone that came across that stage to receive their plaques. And that's important. Recognizing the phenomenal work that our women and men do is a responsibility we have as leaders. Sometimes we don't say thank you enough. Sometimes we don't show appreciation enough. And I just encourage you, If you do, great, please continue to do that. But if that's not something you do a lot of, I encourage you to do that. Because here is what Maya Angelou once said. People will forget what you said, and they will forget what you do, but they will never forget how you made them feel. Thank you very much.